Alright, everybody. Welcome back to the Spiral Podcast. Today is the Wednesday podcast, aka the Ohio State podcast, where I talk about Ohio State's. Well, typically I talk about what happened in Ohio State's previous game, and I give a grading and all that. But as you all probably know, Ohio State was on a bye week last game, so I'm just gonna give my outlook on the season as we're kind of at the halfway point of the year, and talk about each of the matchups that they have upcoming. And yeah, let's get right into it. The first one is going to be this week's game, and that'll be against Nebraska at home. And Nebraska just came off of a huge loss to Indiana. So I actually picked Indiana in my Friday podcast last week, but I thought it was going to be really close. I thought Dylan Raiola was going to be great. Nebraska's defense is usually pretty good, but man, Indiana just smoked them. And I don't think anybody thought that. Indiana's been blowing out teams like UCLA, just really not that great teams that aren't really tested at all. Really weak competition, right? And everybody going into this game thought this was either going to be a wake-up call for Indiana and just prove that they were kind of frauds, or it was going to be a statement win. And it was definitely a statement win. Nebraska, I just think they're kind of showing signs of their old selves, I was really high on Nebraska this year, but my confidence has really dropped. And it could just be that Indiana's like that good. So if it is, either way, I just think Nebraska is not as good as we thought. Even if Indiana is really that good, only scoring 7 points is not great at all, especially when your offense is supposed to be pretty good. So I think Ohio State's going to get the win. It's at home. They've had a 2-week break since playing Oregon. They've had time to get better. Hopefully the defense, specifically Denzel Burke, is better. And, I think Ohio State will get the win. It could be close, but I don't know. I just think Ohio State's just going to jump out too much against Nebraska for it to really be that close of a game. But I wouldn't overlook any of these teams, by the way, just because whenever you overlook a team, I'm sure coaches know this by now, bad things happen, let's just say. So I'm not overlooking any of these teams by any stretch, but it is interesting to see how these matchups will be for sure, especially against like lower teams, just because you always have that element of unknown and surprise and stuff like that. So second game that will happen is on November 2nd, and that one is at Penn State. I don't think it's the whiteout, but it might be. So either way, that crowd is going to be crazy. Probably one of the toughest, if not the toughest place to play in all of college football. And it's really hard to debate that. So, tough environment, definitely going to be a factor in this game. I would say they're probably, looking at the schedule, probably the hardest game on the schedule. Maybe Indiana or Michigan are up there too, but this is going to be a tough game, to say the least. I think Penn State is just a little bit untested at this point of the season. They've gotten some decent wins, but they played Bowling Green pretty close. They should have lost to USC, honestly, if it didn't come for like a insane comeback. And if you're playing Ohio State, you just can't rely on comebacks like that. Those comebacks are just going to be unrealistic against such a team like Ohio State, where if the defense plays great, which I have a feeling it will, just because I don't think Penn State's offense is super high-powered. Now, their offense is definitely better. I think Drew Aller's not having a bad year at all, but I think Ohio State's defense can match up pretty fairly to theirs offense. And I think that offense, man, is so hard to stop with O-line hopefully playing better. The Josh Simmons injury does hurt, but despite that, the O-line still looks pretty good against Oregon, who has a pretty decent D-line. So O-line should be good on offense, and, running back room is insane with Judkins and Henderson, and then the wide receivers on the outside with Igbuka, Smith, Tate. All those guys are going to be really hard to stop, and I just think it's going to be a tough game for sure. I think if the crowd can get into it a lot, then it's very easy for Ohio State to lose this game. But I think they get it done. It's going to be a close game no matter what. Penn State is not somebody to overlook. As of now, they're actually higher ranked than us. I do think they've kind of just fallen into that slot, though. It's not that they've necessarily made wins to make them go ahead. It's just that the teams ahead of them have lost. So that's really what it comes down to. But I still think Penn State is a really good team. Probably will make the playoffs this year. So yeah, Penn State going to be a really tough game, but I think the Buckeyes can get it done in Happy Valley. So next game is November 9th. It's Purdue at home, and I don't really feel like I need to talk much about this one. Purdue just is not good. They had a really good win against a pretty bad team, first game of the season, and I kind of thought they were going to be decent this year. Their offense just looked really good, even though it was like not a good team. I thought they looked better than a lot of people expected, but they've lost like 6 games in a row. It'll probably be more by the time we play them. It's at home. The only way I can see us losing this game or possibly making it close is that we're just going to overlook them to games in a few weeks ahead of that game. So I just can't see Purdue winning. It's going to be really hard. And I know upsets happen, but this is like a really big upset. Like, this is probably more of a difference than Vandy, Alabama, to put it in comparison. Purdue is just not good. So, and it's at home too. Like, it's going to be tough for Purdue to win. So I got Ohio State winning this one by a pretty big margin. Next week, November 16th, is at Northwestern. As you all know, they're in their weird like stadium, hybrid stadium thing as their new stadium's being built. They're going to be in that for like 2 years, I think. So it's going to be interesting for Ohio State to play there. It does get kind of windy there because it's really close to the water. It's going to be pretty cold, I have a feeling. Mid-November, right on the water, like I said. So that can play a factor into that game for sure. And I think this is actually going to be a tough game because of environment factors. Weird stadium. It's going to be, whenever Ohio State plays in weird scenarios, I feel like they always kind of don't play as good as they probably should. So I think this is going to be kind of close. But I just don't think Northwestern is all that great. Their offense is not good this year. Ohio State's defense will definitely have the upper hand on that side of the ball. And then Ohio State's offense, like I said, it's going to be really hard to stop them. I know Oregon kind of did, but I don't know. I think Ohio State's defense lost the game to Oregon more than Ohio State's offense lost. So, I think Ohio State's offense is just too overpowering for Northwestern, to be quite honest. And then I think it'll be a big win. That's our last away game of the season. The next game, November 23rd, is going to be at home against Indiana. So this game might end up being one of the biggest games of the season. Indiana is going to be a really tough team to play. Their coach is really good. And I really don't know who to pick this game because I think Jim Knowles' defense has been kind of lackluster recently. I've kind of seen it on Twitter and Facebook. I've just been seeing a lot of how Jim Knowles' defense just, when it comes to big games, gives up a lot of points. Like, a lot of points. It's at least like 30 or 40 every game. And this could be a pretty big game, depending on where both teams are ranked at this point of the season. But Indiana, man, they have looked good so far. They could be undefeated by the time they go into our stadium. And I really don't know. I think Ohio State's going to get it done. But I would not overlook Indiana by any stretch. Their quarterback, Curtis Rourke, I think is how you say it. He's been on fire so far this season. Like, he has been playing really good. Indiana's defense is flying around the field. They're making great stops. Like, it's going to be a tough game. I think for Ohio State, they're going to need to be able to run the ball effectively. O-line's going to need to step it up. And then the defense can't give up the big plays. That's really what it has to take to beat Indiana. It is kind of crazy that Indiana's becoming good. Like, but their coach, Cignetti, just really good coach, man. So we'll have to see what happens, but I think Ohio State can get it done. But this game could be really good, and I'm looking forward to that one. Late November, it's going to be a great game. And then last game of the season, we all know what this game is. It's Michigan at home. So Michigan, they've lost 3 games this year. Not very good for them, but it's easy to just say that and that Michigan's going to suck. But we cannot lose to Michigan. Ryan Day is going to hopefully prepare these guys more than they have for any other game. Ryan Day needs to win this game, let's just say. If he loses this game, he knows his tenure at Ohio State is done. And there's no, denying that. He will need to win this game. So I don't think, while the fans maybe are kind of overlooking Michigan at the moment, do not overlook Michigan. They are going to be a hard team to beat just because it's a rivalry game. They can run the ball pretty well. Their passing game is not good. There's no denying that. Their passing game sucks, actually. But it's not going to be an easy game. Rivalry games, especially at such a caliber as this one, it's going to be really, really hard to beat them. And that even if it's not, that's the mindset they need to have. They need to come into the game thinking, we got to play our best football we ever have this season. We got to beat them because these fans, these coaches, these football players, they came back to Ohio State just to beat Michigan. And this is really what the whole season comes down to. I think many fans could say that beating Michigan completes the season. Even if we were to lose all these games I just talked about and we beat Michigan, I think fans would still be happy. That's how much Ohio State needs to win this game. So, that being said, I think Ohio State is on paper the better team. I think coaching-wise, Ryan Day is a better coach. I think Chip Kelly is going to have some plays, hopefully, that will mess up their defense because that defensive line they have is really strong. So, yet again, you've seen in these past seasons that whoever wins those trenches wins the game. And Ohio State's defense is really what's going to decide the game. If they can stop their run, game over. There's no question. But if Michigan keeps getting running yards and stuff like that, like our linebackers and defensive line have not been playing great so far in the season. I'm just going to say it. They have not been playing great. And we need them to play great against Michigan. So that's why I think this game can easily get ugly. And that's what I think Ohio State is going to win because of all the things I said. You know, they're going to be preparing really hard for this one. But coming off of Indiana into a rivalry game is going to be tough. Now, the good thing is that they're both at home. So that will help us. But I think Ohio State gets it done against Michigan for the first time in really 3 years. Technically 4, but you know what I get. So I think Ohio State gets it done versus Michigan. I can definitely see them losing 2, maybe 3 games, but they really got to win out this season to make the playoffs, to be honest with you. Make the championship and stuff like that. So they got to win every game. I think they can do it for sure. But that's the end of my podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. A little bit longer of an episode, but I think it's good to talk about this stuff before they happen just to give you guys a little preview on what I'm thinking the games are going to look like. So be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you stayed to the end of this and enjoy this podcast. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye.